This is Scott Cullen. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Cannata Report. I'm here with Frank Cannata, our founder. We've got an interesting conversation today where Frank's going to be kind of looking back at the history of diversification in the office technology industry. And Frank, you've been around for a long time. You've seen dealers diversify even before we were using that term.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, Scott. I mean, I have the benefit of being able to go back to past issues, going all the way back and taking a look and recalling what was so important at the time. And I try to single out the areas at different periods going from 1986 to 2010 of significant introductions that were trendsetters, so to speak. So the first one that I came up with was in 1985. QMS had introduced at the Fall Comdeck show a $1,995 laser printer. Now that may seem like no big deal. I mean, $2,000 is kind of high but it's only a 6 print per minute type of printer, so you can understand that's selling for about $100 today. But however, what was so revolutionary about it, it was competing against machines that were selling for $3,000 that did the very same thing. So the reason it's significant is that at that point, there was a struggle with plain paper. The plain paper machines that were out there, there was a couple of them like the 750 that were working well, some of the early Canon machines. But it was a decided step forward in terms of developing the technology. And also from the standpoint of the dealers with the laser printers, this is a whole new area for them. So it was a form of diversification, if you will. The next significant area that really exploded was facsimile. And I'd like to read for you what I wrote in January 1987. Let's look at the numbers. According to DataQuest, 56,200 fax machines were placed in 1981. That number has risen to 206,086. And after a thorough examination, we estimate 212,000 were imported from January 1 to December 31st. So that was kind of like the beginning. We fast forward to 1991, and this was in our issue in April 91. BISCAP International of Norwell, Massachusetts. I went to a conference. According to a fax group, a total of 1,318,620 fax units were sold in 1950. So you can see from that period, what a gigantic leap that was. And so fax was really very strong from the mid 80s, pretty much through the 90s. We're talking about Rico showing a Group 4 machine. And I don't even remember that coming out. I remember Group 3 being the biggest deal since sliced bread. So they were showing this machine, the 7000L. And again, but more and more significance, this was digital laser. If you remember, the early machines were not laser. And again, this was sort of a technology leap in the industry for fax to be on plain paper. So you have to say in the beginning, we start with laser printing. Certainly the availability of plain paper copier was before that, because that was in the 70s. So plain paper copiers were around. And then in see what that was. Yes, again in 1991, we went to a meeting and we saw a Kodak machine that was big deal because it was digital. So now we have the beginning of the transfer from analog to digital. And then the whole issue of connectivity becomes just forefront on every dealer's mind. And of course, the popular opinion was there's no way a dealer could hook up a copier to a network, no matter how good they were. In addition to the plain paper, color became a very, very important part. The machines were initial machines were extremely expensive, didn't work all that well. And it was a real challenge, and it was a slowly developing market. And this was in 1995 when we received some information on market size. I wrote during the winter of 93 and 94, we took a look at the color copier market, and this is what we came up with. Total placements, including electrophotographic, photographic, bubble jet, inkjet, and thermal transfer, represented 10,600 units. Of that, 60% were electrophotographic. We further projected that in 97, the market would reach 32,000, with 71% of all placements electrophotographic. And it goes on that the color market was going to grow from there. So I guess in a quick way to look at this, you could say it really started with plain paper copiers in the 70s, into laser printing, and then facsimile, and then we had monochrome to color. These were all separate and distinct things that were sold to dealers. That was an addition to what they had. Everything entailed them to learn something new about what they had to sell. Like in the color market, the first said, well, who are we going to sell these to? Well, graphic arts industry obviously was foremost on everybody's mind. They had never sold those before. And the dealers used to say you have to hire a specialist to sell a color copier. Last one I want to talk about was the issue we did in 2010, where we talk about Xerox leading with inkjet at the London IPEX Media Summit. This is kind of like the first really serious reflection that somebody, some major manufacturer, and of course at that time Xerox was the company, with leading away from the traditional toner-based models. And that was the world of inkjet, which we're very much into now. So I would say diversification has been an ongoing process in the industry, and it always gives me a laugh when I hear people say that dealers can't do that. Well, they've done it for so long. I mean, what is going to happen that they can't grasp the next significant turn in the technology? I hope in some small way that has demonstrated the history of dealers and diversification.